Okay, cool. Let me just spotlight this as well. Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope you are good. Welcome to tonight's second edition of Mindset Monday with myself and John. I'm going to kick us off today. My Zoom, as you can probably see, is a little bit erratic, so it keeps flashing on and off. Hopefully it will stop. I'll have to keep turning it on and off though, which is really irritating, but it is what it is. So we'll, if I keep turning it on and off, please just excuse that. So how did you all get on with last week's podcast with Tom Bilyeu? I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found it useful. If you didn't get to listen to it, please make sure that you do. John and I were literally just talking a minute ago and saying that if all you ever did personal development wise was listen to that podcast over and over and over and over again every day, you would pick up something useful. He almost talks faster than me. Right, he squashes so much into a relatively short, like 35-minute period of time. So while I'm chatting, I would love it in the chat if you would put in your biggest takeaway that you took from that podcast. There was masses and masses of really good stuff. So it would be, I don't want you to put in everything, just off the top of your head, what was the biggest takeaway that you had? I'm going to cover a couple of mine with you, and John's going to come on cover a couple of his, and then we're going to talk about some other stuff, and then we're going to leave you with a podcast for this weekend. We should be done in about half an hour or so. Okay, so I loved a couple of things particularly. One of them was the quote that he put on, which was, nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So the whole premise of that podcast to me was that a lot of what we consider or think to be reality is really all just what's going on in our heads, and we can actually control that. So I absolutely loved that line where he said, nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So everything happens to all of us, and whatever spin we put on it is what makes it either good or bad in our minds, or good or bad in our life. And the whole thread for me through, I will have a look at some of these comments in a second, the whole thread for me through that entire podcast that I love about it, and I love about all of his stuff, is the fact that you and I, all of us, can control our own thoughts and emotions, and that we aren't actually a product of our emotion. Our emotions don't control us, we should control them. And it sounds like a small thing, but I know for me, this has had a phenomenal impact in my life, realizing that when I feel frustrated or angry or any kind of perceived negative emotion, that I'm in control of that. And one of the things I worked really hard to do, that's kind of a similar thread to what he's talking about in this podcast, is realizing that I'm in control of everything. And he talks about this right at the start, doesn't he? Taking responsibility for everything in your life, for where you're at, for what's going on, what's happening to you, what's going on in your head, all of that, taking responsibility for it, and the kind of quitting the blame game. And the reason why that is so powerful, is because when you take responsibility and ask those questions that he asked in that podcast, which is, what can I have done differently? Whatever the situation, right? Even if you perceive that none of this is your fault, right? What could I have done differently? How could I have behaved differently, acted differently, made different decisions so the outcome would be better? When you start taking responsibility for things, it gives you all the power back in your own relationships, in your relationship with yourself, in the relationship with your business, in your relationship with your team, in your relationship with your partner. When you literally reclaim all of that power when you say, I have the actual decisions to make about how I respond to something. So if you feel, when people say something like, he made me feel like that, she made me feel like that, that made me, nothing actually in reality makes you feel like anything other than that very instinctive initial response that we have to something. Everything after that is a choice. And I had to work really hard on catching my language, and I still do it sometimes. If I catching myself saying or thinking, he made me feel like that, that makes me feel like, because what you do when you say that or think that is you give all of the power away to that person or that situation, but how you feel about something. And if they have the power, you can't change it, right? So I wanted to take that power back in my life so that nobody else and no one else and nothing else could control what was going on in my mind, because I'm in control of that. And it's really the only thing in our lives that we actually control, isn't it? There's all this other stuff out here that we have no control over, but we can absolutely control our response to it. So I took that big time out of the podcast, and it's a big, I can honestly, hand on heart, tell you that making that change in my own life over the past few years has changed everything for me. It's made me better at everything, happier in every area of my life, which leads me on to the other two bits that I particularly loved. He talked a bit about emotional stability and having resilience and being bothered. You know, he said that should bother you. If you're not growing, it should bother you. If you're not emotionally resilient, it should bother you. And a lot of people, some of us included probably, kind of dander through life a little bit without ever questioning why we're not growing, questioning why, questioning how do we get better, how do we do better, how do I stop things bothering me. And I wrote down one of the things that he said, which was to write down, I am the type of person that, and if we were talking last week, people were asking me all week, how do I start journaling, how do I get, that's a great way to start journaling. Start of the day, write down, I am the kind of person that, and fill in whatever comes, the kind of person that you want to be. And I am the kind of person that stays chill in the face of stress. I cannot tell you the power that will give you in your life. If you can stay chill, I don't mean chilled out through life so that you don't do anything. I mean chill in the face of stress, the rock in the river, the person who doesn't get dragged left and dragged right and drawn into stuff and getting involved in gossip and drama and all of these things that will take you away from the path that you need to be on to go where you want to go. If you can be the person that stays, the calm in the chaos. I remember Shay O'Brien said that right in the middle of lockdown when we had a call with him. He said, you need to be the calm in the chaos. And when you can be the calm in the chaos, you have so much power in your own life. It's incredible. So I love that whole part of the podcast when he talked about that. And then the other one, emotional resilience, and being able to take things without them impacting you, because stuff happens to all of us and around all of us and in our communities and in our families and in our relationships. Stuff happens all the time. But do you remember, those of you who've been in the business a while will have heard me talk about this before, but do you remember the gladiators? And they used to have those pugil sticks, I think they were, and they were like trying to knock each other off a podium. There was that bit, and then there was the thing at the end where they had to do the thing called run the gauntlet. Do you remember that, gladiators? Those of you who are my age or a bit maybe round about my age. Run the gauntlet was basically, Google it if you're young, or YouTube it. They used to have to run from one end to the other, and there was everything trying to knock them off track, people throwing stuff at them, people trying to knock them over. A bit like the last episode of Celebrity, where they're running up the thing. Anyway, that is what this business is like, and that is what life is like sometimes. There is so many people and things and occasions trying to knock you off track. And if you're not emotionally resilient, if you don't work on these things to become these things, people and things and situations will drag you off track all the time. And then you're constantly responding to the shit that's going on around you, instead of just being the calm in the chaos, the person who's just doing it no matter what, moving forward no matter what. This person's doing that, and this person's doing it, and that person's saying that, and this person's screenshotting this to you. Doesn't even bother you. Okay, fine. I'm emotionally resilient. I'm able to take those things. Now, none of this, and this is the last thing I want to share with you, apart from my one quote that I'm going to pass on to John then, is that if you are, you might not, right at the start of the podcast, he's like, when you say I am this, or I think like this, we are all a product of the way that we've been brought up, and then the way we've continued to bring ourselves up as adults, right? So if you want to change and be more resilient and be more emotionally resilient and have more strength of character in these sorts of situations, you've got to practice it. It has to be something that you intend to become, and that you start becoming, and that you act from today in that way. And when something comes along, you have to say, I am the kind of person who's calm in the chaos. I am the kind of person who doesn't respond to these sorts of things. I am the kind of person who's emotionally resilient. Like, say it, you have to say it out loud. Say in the car on your own if you want to. I am emotionally resilient. I'm not the sort of person that responds to these things. I am the sort of person who's calm in the chaos. And it will start to happen, and it will start to move. You've got to catch yourself. It's training like anything else. The gym analogy he used was brilliant. Final one before I pass on to John, that I love. And I'm going to swear now. So if you have small children, put hands over your ears, because he swore. And he said, you need to toughen the fuck up. You need to toughen the fuck up. Is that not the truth for most of us? If you want to be emotionally resilient, toughen up. Stop taking everything so bloody personally. Stop thinking everything's about you or happening to you, or just toughen up. If you start to toughen up in your life and toughen up in your responses to things, your business, your life, your mindset, everything will start to flow better, because you won't be consistently taken off track. That's the things for me. John, I'm going to pass on to you, and I'm going to have a little read of these comments.
Yeah, wicked. Nice one, Emma. Thank you so much. And yeah, really love that 30 minutes. And I just think, guys, you need to save that in your notes or whatever as your go-to to put you back on track. Because for me, that literally covered everything that you need if you're having a little wobble, and he mentioned it on the podcast, you need to catch yourself. I say it a lot. You need to be there with a big wet fish ready to slap yourself and go, what the hell am I thinking? What the hell am I doing? Because sometimes you probably heard about being subconsciously competent. Well, sometimes we are subconsciously incompetent, and our natural default position, our natural go-to, is to turn to a negative Nelly or a negative Nigel, right? And you don't want to be that person. So you need to catch yourself. You need to think, am I falling into this trap? Am I going down that rabbit hole of negativity? The three things that I got from it, and I want to relate it more to the business in this bit, because Emma covered it in a general thing, which was amazing. He touched on the quote from Winston Churchill: success is failure over and over and over and over again without being disheartened. And that totally relates to going through this business. The no's that you pick up along the way, the people that you think are going to be amazing and they're not, the team member that signs up and then ghosts you. Like, you have to just keep going over and over and over again. And sometimes it is boring, let's be honest. Sometimes you think, oh, I've got to send another message and another message. But this stuff that you learn on these podcasts, and this one in particular, about toughening up, about doing what you said you were going to do. That was the other thing. Do what you said you were going to do is what takes you to the top. There's not one NMD or PMD that every day in their Juice Plus journey have got up wanting to have the most perfect DMO. Stuff happens all the time, but you just have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And that is the difference. When people say to me, what's the difference between someone who's been at a certain position in the business for a long time and somebody that's had that breakthrough after a dip? It's that they kept going, they kept showing up. They did it sometimes when they didn't feel like doing it. And guess what? The next day you do feel like doing it. That's the great thing. And it is like the gym. It is totally like the gym, our business. It was Bob Burdick who first said this to me. And Bob Burdick is I think they've earned something like $35 million from Juice Plus, probably more now, because it was a few years ago when he said it. But he said to me, John, he said, this business is exactly like the gym. Sometimes people join the gym and they don't go. Some people join this business and they don't even start it, right? Some people join this business and they do a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit here and a little bit there, and that's okay. Some people join the gym and they go on a Wednesday, then they don't go again till next Tuesday, then they go again on the Thursday, and then they don't go again for 2 weeks. People treat the business like that. And then there's some people that go to the gym every single day and they put in the time, the energy and the work, and they get incredible results. Everyone's got the same weights. Everyone's got the same gym. Everyone's got the same stuff in there. It's just that some people are making the most of it and utilizing it and doing what they said they were going to do to get the results that they want, and some people don't. Next thing, give up the pity party and blame game. And it took, it's, you know, it's like Emma said, toughen the fuck up. I mean, I've heard it all over the last few years, like people moaning and bitching and complaining about stuff. I mean, we are so even found to change our life and earn incredible income and do stuff that we love. So we actually have to, our default position needs to be gratitude, to flip back into, right, I'm feeling a bit stressed. I'm feeling a bit down in the dumps with things. What am I grateful for? What do I need to focus on? What are the opportunities within this situation that I've got? Because if you sit in that pity party and that blame game, you're going to be sat there for a long time. And honestly, nobody is going to pull you out of it. You know, I've worked with loads of people over the years, and I think, do you know what? I'll get on a call with them and I'll try and get them. And it's never anything that I say. It's only them that makes the decision. Do you know what? I'm going to flip my thinking. I'm going to get out of this situation. I'm going to stop blaming and stop focusing on the neg, and I'm going to spot the opportunities. So giving up that blame game. And then there's a bit in the podcast where he talks about you can change whatever happens to you. You have the choice. You have the total choice to do something with what happens or not. Right? It's happened, whatever it is. So you can make it the best day of your life, or you can make it the worst day of your life. You can make it an opportunity to grow and develop and inspire somebody else, or you can use that, whatever it is, as an opportunity to moan, cry, and be down on your luck. And the bit that I loved really was what's at stake. Throughout all this, right, throughout the whole podcast, what is at stake? What's at stake if you don't action any of that stuff? Well, you're going to be exactly where you were when you were feeling in that lull. What's at stake if you don't send those 10 messages a day? Are you going to make it to the position that you want in the company? Are you going to earn the money that you want to earn? So what's at stake is a great question. I've never had it pitched at that angle before, and I loved it because there is that time in our day, in our journey, where you've got to ask yourself what's at stake. The waitress was amazing. She was so attentive, great smile, always looking after us. What's at stake if I don't ask her if she'd be interested in and looking at what we're doing? What's at stake if I don't go to On Fire on Saturday? What's at stake if I don't get on the call? Am I going to get what I want? And it's a question that I'm going to ask myself all the time, because I'm continually saying our destiny is shaped by our decisions. Sometimes our decisions will take us towards our goal. Sometimes they'll take us away from our goal. So what's at stake? And it's amazing that you guys have got on the call as well tonight. So, this just shows that this call is amazing. So Emma, back over to you. I'll add you on because we're just going to touch on proximity is power. Who's heard that phrase before, and what does it mean to you? Proximity is power.
Awesome. It's really interesting reading through the comments, actually. It's like a summary of the podcast. You know, those books you used to get at school when you couldn't be asked to read the whole play. That's like a summary of the podcast in there, the crib list, I think it's called. But a few of you have asked where the podcast is. If you go into the PJ group, it's in there, or get your upline or somebody to send it to you. Or ask somebody on the call, they'll be able to send it to you. So yes, proximity is power. Is so important, and this call is an example of that, right? This is how you get to hang out with people who are in a good mindset, good frame of mind, going somewhere, having optimism, having, and yes, we're not physically together, but what part of the reason that John and I want to do these calls every week is because the more that we can connect with people, because we're both in a really good mindset state at the moment, the more that we'll be able to take people with us who would also like to be in a positive mindset state, right? Now, does that mean we're always in that state? The answer is at the minute, yeah. Right? The answer at the minute for me is yeah, because I've been working on this stuff for a long time, especially over the last 18 months or so, maybe even since my daughter had her surgery 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, for those of you who've been around that long. Can you believe it was that long ago, right? 3 years ago next month. And I had to put myself into a positive mindset by being around people who don't have anything negative to say. Do you not anyone have those friends that they never say anything bad about anybody? They never criticize anybody, and they're a little bit like, don't get me wrong, everybody loves a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of a bitch every now and again. We're human, but you've got to be so careful about the kind of people that you hang about with, that dragging yourself or being dragged into worse, into WhatsApp chats full of complaining, Zoom calls full of complaining, family chat full of moaning about, like, it can really drag you down if you're not careful. And I actually, in most cases, physically removed myself either from those kind of chats or even those kind of groups of people. Like if I'm at a gathering of family to a certain extent, if there's stuff going on and talk about the news and talk about like stuff that puts me in a negative mindset, I literally physically remove myself from that. I might go and wash the dishes or go to the bathroom, but remove myself from that negative conversation, because I don't want to be around in the proximity of anything that messes with what I've worked really hard on up here, right? It's a bit like the gym analogy John was talking about before. If you keep going to the gym but like and working out and feeling good, and then you go home and you eat crap, you never get the goals that you want, because you're not focusing both sides of the coin. You need to do the fitness and the diet, right? Well, in this, you need to do the mindset work, which you're doing by being on here and listening to the podcast. But after that, in between Monday and Monday, watch out who you're hanging out with. There will be people, if you tell them about this, they'll be like, oh my God, that sounds like a load of shit. What are you doing that for? Doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter, because you know what you're doing it for. And I promise you, when you start to feel the power of this stuff, you won't want to be around anybody who doesn't get it. They'll either come on the journey with you to a certain extent and be interested in it, or you could send them every podcast in the world, send them every book recommendation. They'll never read it, they'll never watch it. They don't really want to change. You want to change, so hang about with people who are going to make you feel good about what you're doing. What do you think, John?
Spot on. I mean, let's just use another gym analogy because we're on that thing tonight. But if you go to a class and you train next, and you're in a class, right, everyone's in a line, and you're training next to somebody who's really busting a gut, training their hardest, I guarantee you will up level and you will train as hard as you can in relation to them. Whereas if you're next to someone that's prattling about and really slow and not really giving it their all, you will drop down, right? And a great example of this is years ago, I used to play badminton with my mate from school. He was absolutely terrible. I was all right. I used to kick his ass every single week. But every week we played for almost 9 months. And he used to just get the odd point here and the odd point there. And then as the weeks went on, I was like seeing him catch me up. I was still beating him. But I trained him how to beat me, because I wasn't improving, because I was playing someone worse than me. Mm-hmm. Eventually, he beat me, right? So what I should have been doing was up leveling and getting around people that were aspiring for better things, just as badminton as an example. But it's the same in this. If you want to fly with the eagles, you cannot hang around with turkeys. It's that simple, guys, because they're going to keep you down. I'm not saying you got to distance yourself from your mates and message them and go, we're not friends anymore, sorry, see you later, right? But you have to pull yourself back a little bit and put yourself in situations and around people that are saying, yes, you can do it. You can be NMD. I'm doing it as well. Let's do it together. Because that's how it works, guys. You raise your peer group, and there's so much time that's wasted from negativity, from gossip. You know, I say to my mum sometimes, my mum will start telling me stories about people that I don't even know. And I'll say, pointless convo, this, mum. Can we change this? Absolutely pointless convo. And she'll go mad. She'll be like, stop it, will you? I'm just telling you what she's... I said, Mum, I don't even know the person. Never mind the person that knows the person. Do you know what I mean? It's gone one level deeper. You're telling me about somebody that I haven't got a clue. I've never even meet them. And why don't we talk about something else? And I'll just throw it in, pointless convo. So you don't have to say it, but next time you're in little chit chats, think, is this actually getting me anywhere, this conversation, or is it completely pointless? And What you can do, you can put a handbrake turn on any conversation. I'll give you a little tip. Oh, by the way, right? That's all you got to say. Oh, by the way, before I forget, did you see this? Or did I tell you about this? Oh, by the way, right? You can change a conversation really, really quickly with that line, because I find myself sometimes getting, and whether it's your downline or team members or whatever, someone starts dragging you down this negative path. And, let's use the example of when we didn't have enough tropical, right? So you'll have a group of people that are moaning about it, complaining. All right, can we change it? No, we can't. Can we learn from it? Yes, the company learn from it. But what can we do in that exact situation? We can just make a big song and dance out of the fact that we sold out, right? And we're creating waiting lists, and we're going to get more. And, we had a bit of a laugh saying we've got a new flavor, double chocolate, all that kind of stuff, right? But there's always a way to put a positive spin on it. It's like when your flight's delayed at the airport. You see those people that are moaning and groaning and continually kicking off with the staff. Or some people go, do you know what? I'm going to go and have a brew. I'm going to go and have a beer in the bar, read the paper, do some work on my phone, whatever. It'll be what it'll be. I'll never forget flying to Belfast. I was doing an event for Kellyanne, and the flight was delayed, and this bloke kicked off that much that they banned him from being on the flight. They wouldn't let him on. Right? That is an example of losing the plot, right, for something that he had absolutely no. What was he going to do? Get on the plane and fly it himself? I don't think so. So he ended up assaulting one of the staff, and I'm thinking, you've not just like delayed, you've ruined your whole weekend now. You're probably banned from that airline, probably spend a bit of time in the airport prison, just through stupid decision making, right? And that's what I'm talking about. So you don't want to be dragged off track by people that are trying to take you off track, because they have got an ulterior motive. Their ulterior motive is this: misery loves company. It's as simple as that. People love somebody to moan with and complain with, and they go over there in their own little corner, in their own little WhatsApp groups or whatever it is, bitching, moaning, complaining about other people and how everything's unfair. But it ain't going to change anything. So it don't matter how much you moan about the weather, it ain't going to change. You just got to get on with it. And that's the thing, really. So just to use Emma as an example, Emma messaged me today saying, bloody heating's gone off. Can't believe it. I think there was a power cut or something. And you put, time to go back to my gratitude list. And it's funny, last week, 2 of my bank accounts got closed by Barclays because I didn't send the forms in that they asked for. And I had a flat tire, and I kept having to go and top it up at the local supermarket every day because I couldn't get fit in to get the thing fixed. And normally, if my mindset wasn't so strong, that would have been a downward spiral where you then attract more negative stuff. But it was like, cool, I'll just put some tunes on, I'll listen to an audio, but whatever, I'll just use that time to do a bit of personal development. So what, my bank accounts have been closed down. I'll open 2 new ones. It is what it is. It's not the end of the world. Maybe it's the universe giving me a fresh start. That's the way you look at it. I can't change it. I rang the bank. Can you reinstate them? No, you didn't fill the forms in. You've had ultimate time to do it. It was one of them where I'll get round to it tomorrow. I never did it. But I can't change it. Nothing I can do. Only open up 2 new bank accounts with another firm. Simple as. We are in control of our own destiny, guys. And the quicker you realize that and lean into it, the better your life and the better your business is going to be.
Yeah, 2 quick things on that before we wrap up and share next week's podcast. One that actually takes us back to the podcast from last week a little bit, because it's all mindset's kind of all linked. But the 2 things that you were talking about there that made me think about these were he talked right at the start of that podcast about, like, you might have been dealt a shit hand. You might have been,
yeah,
right? You might have had a crap upbringing, or you might have a shit job, or you might have a really difficult relationship, or whatever, right? Some of us have crapper hands than others, and some of us have a good hand sometimes and a crap hand other times. But some people do have a tougher life than others. moaning about it ain't going to change it anyway, right? So even if you feel like, oh, but it's harder for me, or it's different for me, or it's, you know, you don't understand, or it doesn't matter whether I understand or whether John understands, or whether you think our hand has been easier. Or, for a start, we don't know what anybody else's hand is anyway, right? We've got to make the best of the hand that we have, the upbringing that we had, the relationship we have, all of those things, because it doesn't make any difference whether we sit and moan about it and how unfortunate we are that this and that and this has happened, or we make the best of whatever hand we've been dealt, right? And like a little example of that, and a little in terms of like a quick example, my dad died when I was 16. Very suddenly, had a heart attack when I was in February half term. It's 30 years ago next month, right? I remember that really clearly. And obviously, I had some choices to make about the impact that experience would have on my life. And it has a huge impact. Of course, it does, losing a parent when you're in your teens. But I've always looked at that, certainly, you know, after the initial shock and stuff, in my adult life, I've thought, how do I make my life better because of that? Do you know what I mean? Because I can't change that, but I can change everything that happens after that in terms of how do I make the most of my life? How do I not waste a moment? How do I make that experience make me stronger, etc., etc. So these are all things lots of people have a story that they're so attached to. This happened to me, but can I tell you my story? Can I tell you my story about my divorce, about my, you know, grief, blah, 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 right? All of these things that we're so attached to them, we also think they are who we are. And actually they're not, they're part of your whole package of story, and what happens after that is so up to us. So that's one of the things. And the other one was just, it ties in what you were talking about, John, there, which is to get tough. And this is one of the things Tom Billier said, to get tough, you need to chill out. To get tough, you need to chill out. What does that mean? It doesn't mean sit and watch Netflix all day. It means stop reacting to everything. Like, someone sends you a screenshot. Have you seen this? Have you seen this person's life? Have you seen this person's? I couldn't give a shit. It doesn't have anything to do with me, whatever it's about. I don't want to see it. Like, is it affecting me on my day-to-day? No. Is it affecting you? No. So just chill out about it. It doesn't matter. The cold shower, yeah, I've tried that. It's quite a tough one. If you want to try it, go for it. But it's not a lot of fun. But to get to toughen up, chill out in your response to stuff. Chill out. Get to work, but chill out about all the stuff that you can't do anything about. Right, John, back to you. What's this week's podcast about?
Yeah, so has anybody read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right? So it's by a guy called Mark Manson. It's an incredible audiobook. You don't have to listen to that. There is a podcast that he's just done. There's a film coming out as well, all about it. And it is literally about getting out of your own way. It relates to the stuff that we've just done. This podcast is an hour long, so it's a little bit longer. I'm going to post it in the group now. So it's in, I can't post it in the chat. So it's in the PJ group, going in now. It's literally in. So give it a listen, take some notes, whether you're walking your dog, you're doing your exercise, whatever, just get into it, and it will definitely help you on your mindset. And you know, one of the things about this, what we're doing now, is you will start to notice stuff as you're going through your daily activities, and your mindset will start changing, because it's really important. And he mentioned it again, just going back to the last podcast, you're building that muscle up. These are things that scientifically you can change. So don't just think you're jumping on here and listening to us talk. While you're actually on this call, it's rewiring your brain. And then when you do the work behind the scenes as well, the other bit is start actioning it, guys. Start trying to action this stuff as you go through the numbers, as you're speaking to people. You're building that rhino skin. A no doesn't hurt as much as it did the first time. When I very first got a no in this business, it was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. The first time someone left my team, it was tough. Now it is whatever. Good luck. See you later. Thank you. You know, we're building with or without you. That is it. And we're going to have a huge year, guys. And I think we'll look back on these calls as a pivotal moment in people's journeys, because the product's the same for everyone. The business model's the same for everyone, but that is the difference between making it to the top and not. And just thanks for getting on. Thanks, Emma. I don't know if you want to wrap it up with anything, but yeah,
Oh,
we're
just
all
make
over
sure
it,
if you
guys.
listen to the podcast, guys, if you haven't listened to last week's, listen to it. And if you please do share these training calls with people as well, not just the call itself, but do you know the best way to learn something? Teach it to someone else. So that is the best way to learn and consolidate what you learn in this call, what you feel in this call. Tell someone else about it. Ring somebody else and say, I've just been, even if it's someone else in your team or whatever, and teach a little bit of it. And when the more that you teach something, the more it'll go into your head and the more that you'll start to live it. So thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate all your time. Yeah, it's been amazing. We'll see you all next week at 9 o'clock.
We're doing office hours now, by the way, guys. If you want to stay on, I'm going to put some tunes on, get busy messaging, because I have another call at 12:30. So if you want to stay on and get busy on your phones, you can do. And if you've got any Americanos or Mexicanos or Canadians, I don't know why I'm saying it in that
Canadianos.
accent. Canadianos, we have the call at 12:30 if you want to